What's up, everybody? Welcome to another video here on Smack. If you enjoy this video, please go ahead and like it, subscribe to our channel. Enjoy the show.
I liked it because it was the perfect marriage of hospitality. You had to know everything and anything about hotel operations, but then you had to translate that into finance, into numbers, into investments.
Hi there everyone, and welcome to our newest Smack episode, in which I was able to welcome Gilda Perez-Alvarado, Global CEO of JLL Hotels and Hospitality, to the show. Gilda and I spoke about her experience as a woman in the historically male-dominated sector of real estate, about how becoming a mom changed not only her view on her private but also her professional life, and why she's a big supporter of the global leadership approach. But before we dive into it, I got one little favor to ask. There's now a new feature on Spotify where you can rate us, so if you like listening to Smack, we'd be incredibly grateful for some 5-star reviews. Thanks! But now, without any further ado, enjoy the show. So, welcome to the podcast, Gilda.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Actually, before we start, I must tell you, I'm so happy that you're here with us today, because when we were talking about season 3 in summer, I was just blurting out your name and I was like, can we put her on the wish list? I know it's never going to happen, but can we just try? and when my team told me that we actually got you, I couldn't believe it. So thank you so much for taking the time today. You made my season 3 complete.
Oh, you're amazing. Thank you for having me. That's so nice to hear.
So you are the global CEO of the Hotels and Hospitality department of JLL. And I read through your description of the responsibilities that you have on the website, and it sounds like you're never really sleeping. How would you describe your position to people outside of JLL or our listeners or even me?
Listen, it's an amazing, privileged position. So basically what I do is I lead a team of about 350 professionals who all we do is we specialize in hotels and hospitality. So JLL Hotels and Hospitality, for those who are not familiar, we are the world's largest hotel and hospitality investment advisors. And what we do is we sell hotels, we sell portfolios, we buy hotels on behalf of third-party owners. We have an asset management team. We do consulting. Basically, Patricia, we touch everything and anything that has to do with hotel investment. And we do it with, like I said, an amazing team of about 350 people who are all over the world in the Americas, Europe, Middle East, Africa, and all over Asia Pacific, inclusive of Australia and New Zealand.
Again, I think you probably never sleep.
I don't sleep, but it's not because of that. It's because I have a baby, but it's okay.
True. That for sure doesn't help. And did you ever think that you'd be in this job at some point? Because it feels like this ultimate goal, right? Being in this job.
You know, that's such a good question. It was my dream. Since I first started, I'm not going to lie. So, you know, and if you can dream it, if you can imagine it, you can make things come true. I know that sounds a bit cheesy, but it's so true. And so, you know, I still pinch myself thinking, oh my God, do I actually lead this team? It's an honor and it's a duty. It's a privilege, but I absolutely love what I do. It's amazing.
I read, though, that when you were a teenager, you didn't think about hotel investments at all, but you wanted to become a scientist. And even when you first enrolled in college, you chose a scientific program, right?
That's exactly right. It was a bit of a 180, to be honest. So, you know, just to give you a little bit of background about myself, I was born in Costa Rica. My father is an economist. My mother, when I was growing up, worked in a hotel. My grandmother owned a hotel and a restaurant. So, you know, my career right now is a little bit of a combination of my parents. But you're absolutely right. When I was growing up, especially as a teenager, I wanted to be a scientist. I wanted to be a biochemist, to be precise. And I was obsessed with finding the cure for AIDS. And so when I applied to Cornell, and that was the only school I wanted to go to, and therefore the only school I applied to, my entire application was around this subject matter. And, you know, I was a very big nerd in high school, and I even took, you know, I was taking chemistry lessons already at, the university of my town where I used to live. But when I went to Cornell in my first class, I would say that was probably the first, blank moment that I had when I walked into the room. There was probably about 8 or 10 people in the room. The professor walked in. There was no hello, just a formula on a chalkboard. And I looked around and I said, "Oh my gosh, I don't think this is for me." So I went back to my dorm. I called my parents. I said, "I am very lost. I don't think I want to do this." And, through probably a 4-hour conversation, they reminded me that I was in the world's best hotel school
Yeah.
and that, I like travel, I like global, and why don't I get into the hotel school? And lo and behold, the next day I went and I enrolled there, and I was a transfer student, and it was the best decision I ever made.
Which is crazy, right? When you think about it, like Cornell being one of the top hotel schools in the world, and you go there to study science only to change like super early on to the hotel department. So maybe because you only wanted to go to Cornell, you somehow deep down you already knew what
It
was
was
going to
meant to
happen.
be. I agree. I think it was meant to be.
So, of course, I went to EHL, hotel school in Lausanne, and I have been to Cornell, though, with my dad because he did once a course there 2 years ago, and we visited the campus. And I must say, I was, of course, like American campus dimensions there for any European, just insane. And I was walking around, I was just like, oh, yeah, I think I wouldn't have mind studying here either. So I hope your experience, like your study experience, was then better once you changed the program. What was it like for you?
Patricia, first of all, I have to say, I think EHL is an extraordinary school, a sister school to Cornell, and I am an amazingly big, huge fan of EHL. So, well done, because you're then a hotel sister. As it relates to studying at Cornell, it was amazing. So, the hotel school, it was all in one building. It was a little bit of a microcosm within a very big university that is Cornell. But it was great. I didn't feel lost. It wasn't like your very big American universities where you're relatively unanimous in all of these classes that you attend with hundreds of students. This was very personal, very hospitality oriented. And, my favorite part of school was my network. My friends were my classmates were from all over the world. And so I would say that was also one of the first instances that I got to experience or have a taste of global, and I loved it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, exactly the same for me. I think the one thing that I would stress as the most, what formed me the most during those 3 years at DHL was the people you meet, right, and the network that you are creating. Because every person you meet becomes just a little piece of your entire community. But then, so when you were at Cornell, somehow I think I read somewhere that your main interest or your major at some point became real estate finance. And how did that happen? Like, basically, there's so much, right, that you can also focus on during the program. So how did you dive into that?
Yeah, it was interesting. So at the time, I went to Cornell in '99. I graduated in 2002, and during that time, real estate was very much in vogue. I would say, just like tech is right now. And given that I had gone to Cornell to basically study science, I was very, very good at math back then when I started at Cornell, and so real estate made sense to me. It was numbers driven. It was black or white. There was a formula. There was a right answer. And so I liked it because it was the perfect marriage of hospitality. You had to know everything and anything about hotel operations, but then you had to translate that into finance, into numbers, into investments. And so, that's where I guess my career came about. I must say I was very much influenced by an amazing professor that I had, Dan Kwan. He was heading the Cornell real estate efforts back then. He was an amazing mentor. He still is a mentor and a friend. And I am at JLL actually because of him. So he was very influential. And, that's what great professors do, right?
I was just gonna say, I think so often it's the person again. It all comes back to the persons in the end, that really like makes you become a fan of the subject. Like so often we here in Switzerland always say, you either hate or love French, not because of the language, but because of the teacher.
Well
Because
said.
if you have a bad teacher, then you're gonna hate the language for the rest of your life. And it's exactly that. That makes the difference. And I'm happy to hear that you're still in touch. And that's just, I mean, that's mentorship right there, right? That's
Hmm.
how it's supposed to happen. And I think I read somewhere that you have a lot of mentors in your life, right?
Yes, I do. I have great people who taught me many things, both I would say, listen, professionally, personally. I like to keep a log in my, kind of like iPhone notes of things that people say and do that are completely inspirational. I think if I were to print my notes, they would probably be 100 pages. But I do like to find inspiration everywhere, from people to sites to experiences. And I've been very fortunate. Because I travel quite a bit and that is my main passion. I get to meet a lot of people. And so as I said to you earlier, Patricia, I'm a very big nerd. And so I like to learn. And for me, every personal encounter I have with somebody, it's an opportunity to learn something about them
Mm-hmm.
or a situation or where they come from. So yes, people are absolutely essential and they have been very essential and influential in my life and my career.
Well, there you have already your project for when you're at some point retired. You can write a book about all the people that you've met and all the lessons that you've learned.
That's a very nice idea. I like that.
And are you yourself already a mentor to people, or is it something that you are pursuing?
Listen, yes, we do have a mentorship program at JLL. We have a mentorship program as well at Cornell. So let's say from a formal perspective, yes. But I would say to you, my biggest mentors have been informal, right?
Hmm.
They may be people that I met once. They may be people that I meet on a regular basis. They may be a family member, right? And the beauty about people is that everybody's very different. So and everybody has their own reality and their own perspective. So you learn different things at different times from different people. So I would say those who have taught me the most it's been done at the informal level as opposed
Hmm.
to being designated to me or me being designated to somebody.
Hmm. And I think that's always like kind of the problem with these programs. They're well meant, but in
Mm-hmm.
the end, it's not something that you can force or that you can create. It's just like the connection has to be there, and then it's up to these two people to kind of make something out of it.
Yes.
And yeah, it's kind of like a relationship in the end. And if the spark's not there, then the spark's not there, right? So
Yeah.
these programs are great.
It has to be organic. It's not commercial. It's not forced. I couldn't agree more.
Hmm. And so you have worked in real estate finance ever since you graduated from
Mhm.
Cornell for like everyone knows these names, EY, PwC, and now JLL for actually more than 17 years. It's crazy.
It is crazy.
And the real estate domain, of course, as we all know, has historically been very much dominated by men as well. And I am myself actually about to start my first job in real estate, in hospitality real estate next week.
Awesome. Excellent.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very excited to get back into the game after 1.5 months of vacation. And so, yeah, I'm just interested in your experience when you were starting out. You were so very young as well. And probably also like throughout your career, you faced often the situation where you are the only female like analyst on a team, for example, or something like
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, listen, it still happens, less so, but it still happens. I have to say though, even though it was daunting at times when maybe I was the only woman in a room of 16 or 12 or whatever it was, I've never felt unwelcomed. And so I think that's what makes hospitality real estate very different. And you went to EHL, I went to Cornell. You have a hospitality background. Hospitality is about service. Hospitality is about experience. It's about making people feel welcomed.
mhm.
And I have always I've always felt welcomed in my settings. And, I've never, thankfully, I've been very, very fortunate, felt the opposite. Yes, it is different when you're the only person who looks and feels and acts like you, but it also in a certain way helps you build your own personal brand. And so, I've learned to be myself and be very comfortable being myself. So, but I have to say, maybe if I was in a very different sector of real estate, maybe if I was in office or industrial or residential, maybe my experience would have been very different. But because, my area of focus has always been hotels and hospitality, and most of my career has always been global, I have been very fortunate to always feel very welcome. That is not to say, Patrizia, that I don't want to change it. I do. I definitely want to see more women at the leadership level. I think we're doing a very nice job at JLL of doing that. I'm seeing an amazing progress around the globe in our industry. And I am excited to see what the next minds have to bring. But yes, historically, it's been very male dominated, but I have to say I've always felt welcome.
Mm-hmm. I think it's really interesting that you say that you highlighted like that, because that's probably true, right? Like hospitality brings a special breed of people together, as my dad always liked to say, in a good way, obviously. That we are all a bit crazy, and we are we care about making people feel welcome and happy and have a great experience. And I think that probably translates to collaboration more than we think.
Yes.
And so, yeah, so I'm excited that my job is also in hospitality real estate. And also interesting what you were saying about that you're happy how JLL is doing a great job of promoting also more women. Is there a special like program in place, or is it just that you are seeing these changes?
Listen, I think it's a little bit of both. Obviously, we've become quite intentional about DE&I. And I know the rest of the world has become more intentional in DE&I. It's good business, so it's a little bit of common sense too. But you know what, Patricia, it takes women at the top or diversity at the very top to start making these changes more intentional. So definitely. One of my duties, and it's an honor as well, is to make sure that, I continue to implement these, very important objectives of making sure that we have the best, most diversified, more, equal set of leaders. Because like I said, it's good practice. It's common sense. It's good business, right? You want to make sure that when you're making decisions, you're looking at all angles, every perspective. You're solving for basically 100% of the population. You cannot just solve for 50%. That is silly.
And so you just said representation is very important. Would you also say that you're in favor of like these quotas, basically, that are very, very much discussed, if it's the right way to do this or not, where you have like a quota for women on boards or women in leadership teams and all of that?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I do not believe in quotas. I believe in merit. And so, yes, while eventually, we all want to be representing the world's ratio, let's just say 50-50, we have to do it in a smart way. And I like to tell this story. I was participating as part of a United Nations General Assembly in a meeting that took place. And it was a meeting of very powerful, very professional women who have come from Saudi. And this was in New York. And we were having a roundtable discussion with professional female leaders, I guess, in different disciplines in both the public and the private sector. And so they asked the Saudi women, who, by the way, we had scientists, doctors, entrepreneurs. It was a very rich fabric of people who had come over. And somebody asked these women, do you believe in quotas? They asked the same question that you asked, and they said, no, we are not going to force the number right now. We are going to first set up these women for success, and then we will put them in their role. Because the problem is, if I say tomorrow, you know what, we're 50-50, and I'm just going to put, women or minorities into this role, but they are not prepared, they're going to fail. And that has a lot
of hurting. Yeah.
Then they're going to feel disenfranchised. They're going to feel like they don't belong. They're going to feel like a failure. It's going to promote stereotypes. That is terrible. But if we know what the end game is, if we know that the end game is to have a fair representation of what the world looks like, and you want to have the most brilliant minds in your team or in your board or in your organization, you have to make sure that you invest in people from a very early age and you set them up for success. Otherwise, the experiment does not work. That's why I don't believe in quotas. I believe in preparing people, setting up the path, and making sure that we give people all the tools and opportunities for success.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's always what you say, like equality and equity, right? In the end, so you have to have the tools to be able to achieve the same, but not force it, or not force the way, like you just said. Yeah, it's very true. And to come back to diverse teams, and also something that you said a lot in different articles that I've read preparing for this interview. You always say your passion is global, and you're always focusing on leveraging like regional knowledge and like taking that to basically strengthen the overall company. Can you tell us a bit more about your approach to leadership and how you lead your team?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I like to lead with inclusion, right? I want to make sure that everybody feels like they're part of a team. We like to say at JLL Hotels and Hospitality that we're a collection of people. We're a collective of minds, of knowledge, of brains, of experience, right? So I like to hear from everybody. I want to know everybody's perspective and recommendations, and then I'll make a decision. The reason why I love global and I love traveling is because I love people. I like, when I travel, it's amazing. All your senses are on, different languages, different cultures, different smells, different foods, different people, different ways of conducting business, different ways of living life. And I think that is very rich. And, we're always striving for improvement. And, how can you do benchmarking if you're being myopic and only focusing on a micro market or just a specific country? It should be global. So I love it when I travel and I am meeting with investors, let's say in Asia or the Middle East or Europe, and I'm hearing what they're doing. And I think it's so innovative and so interesting that I'll bring back that idea into, let's say, back to the States, and I'll discuss it with our team here and with our investors, and they can take some of those best practices and apply it to what we're doing locally. I think that is very, very interesting. So it's basically you're solving for the highest denominator as opposed to solving for the lowest common denominator. You want to learn who's doing it best, who's being creative, who is being flexible. It definitely keeps you on your toes. It enables you to have this entrepreneurial open mind. And, it's very enriching. And that's the beauty of hotels and hospitality. At the end of the day, what we do is we sell, we're in the industry of experiences, right? And that is very wide. It's very expansive. There's many different ways of interpreting hotels, hospitality, experiences, etc. So I think you absolutely have to pay attention to what the rest of the world is doing. You have to learn from the best and then look to do your local application. And by the way, I'll give you a very concrete example. I always like to know what the best work product in the world is. And once we see it, let's say that maybe the Australia team just did an amazing proposal and it's stunning from a design perspective, thought perspective, knowledge work, whatever. I like to take that and then I'll show it to the team in New York and they will build on it. And then we'll take that best pitch and then we send it to Asia or I don't know, the Hong Kong office, and they make it even better. And then we send it to the London office and they make it even better. So on the next iteration. So I like to build upon, the foundation that we have. It's not static. We have to keep on learning. We have to keep on stretching. We have to keep on improving. I think that is essential.
Do you though sometimes face pushback from certain people that just see this as the harder road to take in certain in a way?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Sometimes we do, and it has to do with people's time horizon, right? So I remember when I first started to have a more active role in leadership, I was with people who maybe only had 3 to 5 years left in their work experience, and they were focused on their term. They weren't focused on their legacy. But, I am 41 right now. I started to have more of a leadership role in my late 30s, in my mid to late 30s. And so obviously my time horizon was very different. And I was looking at, of course, short-term impact, but more medium to longer term. And I have to tell you, Patricia, my time horizon is no longer my time horizon. It's legacy time horizon. And that happened when I became a mother, because now I'm focused on my daughter. I am focused on the future generation. It's not just me. It's not my legacy. It's them. So you do get pushback depending on what your time horizon is. And if you're focused on your career until you retire, or your legacy, or just doing the right thing for future generations to come. And I would say women, in that sense, we're very special because we're always thinking about the next gen.
Yeah, that's probably right. It does something. I mean, I cannot relate yet because I'm not a mom yet, but I think it really changes your perspective on probably everything, and even your professional life, even though that's not the first place your mind goes, right? But it's, yeah. And is that also? I read a lot about the global hotel desk.
Yes.
Is this also something that obviously like ties in with the global leadership approach that you're?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We obviously the hotel industry is global, and it's like all the large operators, the Marriott, the Hiltons, the Hyatts, the Accors, they're all over the world. The largest sovereign wealth funds invest all over the world. Institutional investors, insurance companies, most of them invest around the world. So the reason why we created the Global Desk, this is a collection of market specialists, so people who are in the Middle East, people who are in, key markets in Asia, key markets in Europe, who know their market extremely well, who know the capital, who's domiciled in that market extremely well, but they speak global, and they can basically, in a sense, it's almost like an ambassador role. So, for example, if we're dealing with a Middle Eastern investor who happens to be a first-time buyer in a particular jurisdiction, the way we will do it is the global desk, in that sense, let's say the desk in the Middle East, will work with that investor, and they will link up with the local team of that specific jurisdiction where they are buying something. So let's say it's an investor from, I'm making it up, okay, from a first-time investor from Oman who wants to buy a property somewhere in Australia in a specific market. We will make sure that the team on the ground in the Middle East, who's got the relationship with that Omani investor and understands the cultural nuances, can link up with our team in Australia and make sure that there is nothing lost in translation. So the team in Australia can explain the local market dynamics better than anybody, but they're also dealing with, quote, the ambassador, which is the role of the global desk, to make sure that we are very respectful and mindful of cultures, geopolitical, macroeconomic issues that maybe a local advisor is not attuned to.
And that's, again, like the advantage of you guys being the biggest company in your field out there, because that's just something that only you, and only if organized well, like you were just explaining, can give as a customer experience, right? Or as a client experience. And of course, then you're never going to do business with anyone else, because who's going to be able to guide you this well through a purchase?
Yeah, no, and that's what we want to do. And by the way, it's not what's really interesting. It's not about having the largest number of bodies. It's about being the most connected. And I think that the companies of the future who are going to be the most successful are those who are the most connected. Going back again to that collective intelligence, connected intelligence, I think that is essential. So yes, you can have maybe 3 times more people than we have around the world, but if they are not connected, that is, it's futile almost, right? So it's all about connectivity, knowledge sharing in real time, and just making sure that left hand knows what right hand is doing, and that we are collaborating as a unit, as a team. We like to say, there's this vision or this imagery of a swarm of birds, right? It may have 200 birds, it may have 1,000 birds, but they're all flying in the same direction, each one in their own position. And they form this most amazing shape, sometimes very big, sometimes very narrow, right? But they all know their position and they're doing it at once. That is what we like to think of the hotel scene around the world. That's how we like to think about ourselves.
Yeah, it's a beautiful picture, and I think everyone gets it when you explain it to them like that, right? So I don't want to talk about the pandemic too much, but of course, it is like something that was very and still is unfortunately dominant in all our lives. And in your case, actually, the COVID year #1 was a very special one because, like we said before, you became a mom right before basically everything started. So first of all, what's the name of your daughter?
The name of my daughter is Gilda. She has my name, but in reality, we both have my mother's name. So we're
Oh wow, that's such a nice tradition. That's such a nice tradition. And so I read somewhere in some article that basically, of course, New York City was hit very badly, and that you basically just packed everything up and went to Nicaragua.
Yes, that is right. It was, it was very scary. Obviously becoming a parent is, it's already a very important milestone. Becoming a parent or having a major life event during a pandemic where no one knew what was going on, and maybe no one knows what is going on. It was very challenging. And so I was very fortunate that I was able to spend time, 13 months to be precise, with my parents in Nicaragua, which is where they live now. And it was a blessing because it takes a village. You need help. That was for me the biggest lesson. Becoming a mom was the most humbling experience. It was the most empowering experience. Don't get me wrong. Oh my God, after going what we had to go through, you definitely become very, very strong. You have a very strong sense of self, of responsibility, of duty, of doing the right thing. But it's also, you need people, you need help. You cannot operate in an island on your own. So I was very blessed that I was able to count with the support of my family, and that I was surrounded by incredible women who gave me tips and extremely relevant advice on how to care for a newborn. So it was great. I was very lucky in that sense.
Would you say at the beginning you thought you could do more on your own? And
yes, I did. Completely did. It was, I guess, you also don't know what you don't know. But in retrospect, I don't think I know I wouldn't have been able to do it on my own. So I'm glad I had the chance to go with my husband and my baby to my family's house for 13 months and have all the support. And by the way, because I had all the support and infrastructure, I was also able to focus on my work responsibilities. So it was a full team approach, and it worked out really well.
The whole soccer team was behind you.
Completely, 100%. The whole league, I think, not even the team, the league. Yeah.
And I also read in an article that that it's exactly that experience, basically, that also showed you in a way that current policies for working parents need to change. Or I mean, they I think everyone knows that.
Yes, 1,000,000%. They need to evolve. It's they're not realistic, and that's why, going back to what you were asking before in terms of, how do we get the right strategies and policies implemented? What you need diverse people making decisions, because we all bring different perspective. I would say if I was in my leadership role, but I still had not become a parent, I probably would not be the best advocate of it because I wouldn't have gone through it on my own. But now that I have gone through it on my own, you're still dealing with the pandemic, hopefully soon an endemic. And you're dealing with disruption of childcare, of responsibilities, restrictions on travel, the pressure on work. You do need flexibility. And, not just being a parent, but just being a caregiver, right? Maybe you're taking care of a parent, or you're taking care of a spouse or a partner. We are human at the end of the day. We all have to bring, you have to bring your entire self to work. And the reality too, I mean, not even that, if you poll workers right now or younger generations, we've all gotten accustomed to having more flexibility, and more freedom, if you will, which is interesting because we've all been restricted and locked down. But you want more freedom of how to implement your time. And it all works if there is trust. I trust my team is going to get their work done. They trust that I'm going to get my work done. We'll just maybe have to do it in different hours of the day, but it will always get done, and it will get done well. We just have to be flexible because life happens.
Yeah, it really does. And I think it's interesting because everyone's saying that this the combination of the pandemic and also the different mindset of generation like Gen Z and also millennials to a certain extent have really brought about this change now, where employees are demanding a lot from employers and will continue to do so for the next years, even if we're out of the pandemic. And it's exactly that, the flexibility, right? And the funny thing is that that's gonna probably do a lot for exactly policies for working parents and caregivers and like all of that, which is kind of like a side product probably from the flexibility kind of mindset, but is hopefully gonna solve, or I think, or I hope companies are now more ready to take this step, because every company has been forced to
Yes.
already go so much further into offering flexibility that now it would be a shame to go back again like 5 steps, and we have to fight for every step into the future again.
Yeah,
But yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely,
yeah.
100%. And I think, if companies don't evolve, then these companies are not going to exist in the medium to long term. Thank God we have technology. Technology helps us connect. It helps us stay together. There's obviously no substitute to in person, going back to those organic relationships that we were talking about at the beginning of our conversation. But, flexibility makes people happier. Happier people are more creative. More creative people are better at problem solving. They're better at teamwork. And again, it's just a virtuous, positive cycle. And that's what we need to do. And you have that again if you trust your employees, and if the employees trust their employers.
On a more like business side of things, how were the last 2 years for you and your team at JLL? What did you experience in terms of investment opportunities, shifts in the market?
Yeah, it was. I would say, we were very, very lucky in terms of the approach. It was an entire team approach. Obviously, we were impacted, as was everybody else around the world, but we've a few very good things happened. One, we learned how to work as one team again, globally. We are more connected and feel like we're more together now, regardless of whether or not we're together in the same physical space. But because of Zoom and Teams and all these tools, we actually do have a much greater sense of collaboration worldwide, which is really, really good. We've had some significant leadership transitions as well, with with people who have a much longer term perspective, going back again to that to term, as you and I were talking about earlier, who are very much focused on the future. We've seen the significant role of technology. And also, we're all very excited about the fact that we're going to see the greatest amount of change for the positive, I think, more creativity than we ever have in our lives going forward, right? Just technology, we're going through our next major revolution through technology. And that is super exciting, thinking about new models of business, new ways of occupying space, how people are seeing ESG as an opportunity to do the right thing and are excited about it. Going back to flexibility, what does that mean for the office of the future, or the hotel of the future, or the living quarters of the future? I think that's really interesting. How people connect, what people need, how do you define experiences, the whole experiential economy. I can go on and on and on, but what's really interesting is the entire world has gone through this pandemic together. We've all been shocked for the last 2 years. and there are some very creative minds at play. And so I am incredibly excited to see what the next concepts are going forward. And our people are excited. And, once you go through a shock or a downturn together, you come out of it even stronger. I would say I was so impressed and humbled as well by the leadership that I saw across the board, from at all levels of the organization, people coming together, the support and the ideas that were being brought forward. So yeah, this has been an interesting time. It's been a very creative time, and I think we're going to come out of it better than we were at the beginning.
And given that it is the beginning of the year still, I think the kind of New Year's resolution or topics for the new year is still a question that I can ask. What do you think are the main topics of 2022 for you or for your team or the industry?
Yeah, but listen, as it relates to trends, definitely the role of technology, the creativity that we're seeing in our space, the new operating models that are coming about. And, last but not least, obviously ESG, right? The sustainability in every single sense of the word, from both an environmental, a social perspective, that is so front and center. And, Patricia, for me, the biggest takeaway that I had from my latest global roadshow, which was in Europe before the end of the year, it was so rewarding. It was so fascinating. All the conversations that we were having with investors in Spain, in France, in the UK, who were talking about, and that's where we were focused at the end of the year, the markets that we visited. It was fascinating to hear about, like their views on co-working or the future of hospitality, the role of technology, how operators have to be more flexible. ESG, instead of building new, basically renovating and repositioning a building and taking it from brown to green, and the impact that has on community. And so I was fascinated just to see the excitement and the creativity. It's like almost you could see steam coming out of people's heads as to how creative they were being and how amazing it was. And it was all done in a very collaborative fashion. So I was very excited about that. And of course, I brought those ideas into the conversations that I was having with U.S. investors as well. And I'm attending a pretty big U.S. hotel investment conference next week. So I'm excited to hear what they have to say and share that with the other parts of the world. But I am most focused on creativity, and as it relates to internal policy, just making sure that we attract, retain, grow the brightest and best minds in the industry. And so that's a role. That's a job.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's a job for a lifetime.
Absolutely.
So we're actually already at the end of our talk, and I always end my episodes with the same question. Because I only recently, well, now not that recent anymore, but graduated myself. And I think it's always very important to kind of give tips to the next generation, as you would probably agree. So is there anything that you would have liked to tell your 22-year-old self, freshly graduated from Cornell? And yeah, any advice to give out to people starting out in the industry?
That's such an amazing question. I would say, very simply put, never stop learning. That's it. And travel. Go see the world. So never stop learning, travel, meet people, dream. And, if you can imagine it, it can be done. So yeah, it's very exciting times. Very exciting times.
That's what I think too. It definitely creates a lot of opportunities out there, I think, for people starting out, that you just have to grab, basically.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your, as we know, pretty busy schedule.
Patricia, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for what you're doing in the industry. Looking forward to hearing the rest of your podcasts as well. And, cheers to a very happy, brightful, and creative future in hospitality, and good luck with your new job.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That's it for this episode, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to share your thoughts on this episode and everything else that is going on at Smack with us by checking out our website at smack.media or connect with us on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Instagram. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to Smack and click here for more.